fans, it's your boy Gsluke here for our round 4 prize picks targets for the Charles Schwab Challenge. Now round 3 was a little bit of a strange round, ended up going 2-1-2, so 2 wins, 1 loss, and the 2 pushes, which, believe it or not, is profitable on prize picks, which of course I've done that a few times, but every time I cash a card that has 2 pushes on it and a loss and it profits, I feel a little bit guilty because it doesn't really feel like a win, but nonetheless, I guess that saying is profit is profit. We move on with a little bit of bankroll here for Sunday that we can try to parlay into that 5 of 5 we're looking for. Of course, today, Jordan Spieth really fumbled the bag there with multiple misses within 8 feet, especially down the stretch there on hole 16. And then even Scottie Scheffler pushing with a Davis Riley. I mean, come on, man, right? Like, you got to cash in 1 or 2 more times, particularly where he made 9 pars in a row to start his round, which, happens from time to time, but get one of those putts to lip in rather than lip out, and we would have been really cashing here. So I'm not going to hold, too much against that. Really looking forward to Sunday's round here, and of course, going to be covering our top 5 props in the video. We're going to go for that 12.5x parlay. I'm not going to be going against matchups this time. We're going to go for that bonus, go for broke, like we're used to doing here on the channel. So we have a lot to talk about, some research to get into, so it's not delayed at all. All right, we've got data golf on the screen. So just get an idea of round 3 because the conditions here for Sunday are going to be very similar. In terms of a scoring average, we saw it played a plus 0.61, regardless of whether you teed off in the morning or the afternoon. And scoring conditions were mostly dictated by the wind. We saw pretty strong wind gusts throughout the day. The greens were a little bit firmer and faster than we saw for the rounds 1 and 2, and that was really reflected with, first off, a lot of the accuracy percentages. GIR percentage was well below what we saw for Thursday and Friday, and that was also with fairway percentage, which is a little bit strange, but as the fairways and the greens tend to get firmer and faster, they tend to bounce a little bit more when you hit them. It just makes them slightly harder to hit, and that was definitely reflected with the statistics. So I'd expect that effect to just continue even more so into Sunday, as there is not any rain or precipitation expected in the area overnight or into the morning, or frankly, at all in the forecast at all. So if we take a look at the wind forecast for Sunday, you can see it's in that 14 to 22 mile an hour range for pretty much the entire day. And that's the sustained winds. The wind gusts a little bit higher, but not drastically higher. We're not looking at like 40 to 50 miles an hour winds, just somewhere in that 30 to 25 mile an hour range. So the wind conditions very similar to Saturday, where you can see it was in that 10 to 20 mile an hour range when it came to sustained winds, but the wind gusts were at that same type of level, right? So it's not a drastic difference here on Sunday. And while we have slightly more difficult pin locations for the Sunday round, you also see slightly firmer and faster greens. It's not like it's going to play a whole stroke more difficult. You're talking about maybe a jump from a plus 0.61 to a plus 0.75 average with the field. So keep that in mind when we're looking at the prize picks board. So going to hop over to that right now and going to start this off with some of the strokes props. So given that it's going to be difficult, you'd expect us to take some overs here, but this board is more than accounted for when it comes to strokes. I mean, you have some guys down here at 72.5 strokes, guys at the top of the board like a Jordan Spieth and a Scottie Scheffler at 70 strokes that I'd definitely be considering taking the under on, right? I mean, even if the field average is plus 0.75, you're going to see elite tier players shoot something like +1 even par quite often. So, the guys that are at like 70.5, like a Jordan Spieth and Victor Hovland, and we're certainly within consideration here for the poll, but the ones I settled on were Max Homa, Taylor Gooch, and Tommy Fleetwood. 3 guys all teeing off in the morning wave, or at least with Taylor Gooch midday at the very latest. So we're going to have our sweat over with relatively early into the day, but more than anything, I'm expecting the conditions to be slightly tempered in the morning. Over here on the wind forecast, you can see that the wind gusts are slightly lower in the morning for Sunday. Also, the sustained winds about 6 to 7 miles an hour lower. So if we're going to have any sort of advantage at all, right, it's going to be in the morning wave. But more than that, they're the guys at 71.5. we have a whole stroke and a half to work with over the guys at 70. And Max Homa, Taylor Gooch, and Tommy Fleetwood, they're top 20 players in this field. All of them coming in with relatively good form. I mean, first off, Max Homa obviously won at the Wells Fargo Championship. Taylor Gooch, he had the top 20 finish last week at the PGA Championship. And Tommy Fleetwood, another really solid player who, he's kind of coming into his own on the PGA Tour. Last year wasn't his best year, to be frank, but over his last 2 to 3 months on tour, he's been a top 5 player on tour in terms of his shots gained. Right now, that hasn't necessarily reflected in all of his finishes. He had a solid finish last week with the top 5 finish, but kind of sneakily, moving his way along this week as well. Made another cut. Just very consistent player across all 4 stat categories. So I really like going to all 3 of these guys. So I have, first off, Max Homa projected for 70.3 strokes. So obviously better than the average, which I think is going to be 70.75. He's coming in with form, and even though Saturday wasn't his best round, he's shown an ability to play in difficult conditions. Just think of the Genesis Invitational, which he was able to win, or even the Fortinet, where you saw some windy conditions over the weekend in Napa Valley. So I like him there at that price tag. For Taylor Gooch, I have him projected for 70.3, so at that same number, a whole 1.2 less than his projection. And he's a solid wind player. He went to Oklahoma State. We saw that today. He had a very solid round, and again, the morning wasn't any easier than the afternoon today. Now, tomorrow I would expect that to change. Why not expect that to continue here, right? So I like him, though, even if he's teeing off right around midday. A solid ball striker. The putter was a lot hotter on Saturday than it had been for the first 2 rounds. And if he even has a remote semblance of that putter here for Sunday, I'm very comfortable taking the under on him. And Tommy Fleetwood at 71.5. He's another well-rounded player. Like I said, kind of coming into his own here on the tour. He gains across all 4 stat categories. That's the main feather in his pocket. He's not really elite at anything. He's not an elite off the tee player. He's certainly not an elite approach player. You could say he's maybe elite with his short game, but that's okay. That's okay when his projection is 71.5, where even par would be more than okay for us, right? In fact, 1 over par would be more than okay with us, would be a hit at 71.5. So I'm projected for 70.4 strokes, so slightly more than Taylor Gooch and Max Homa there, but still comfortably below the mark that we're looking for in terms of a projection. But now for the 2 fades. So we are going for a 12.5x parlay, as promised during the intro. It's going to be for hole 1 shots. Sorry, not round 1 shots. We're taking Danny Lee and Martin Traynor, and we're taking the over on both of them. And just to give you an idea of why, take a look at this for hole 1. In the morning, it played to a 39% birdie rate. You can see that 30% of people made birdies and 9% of them were able to make birdie. In the afternoon, it was a 56% birdie or better rate. In fact, there were 3 eagles and 17 birdies as opposed to the 3 eagles and 10 birdies from the morning wave. That difference, I couldn't tell you why it happened. Of course, even watching it on TV, there wasn't any massive difference that we could notice, but the numbers don't lie, right? Even if we take a look from some of the other days, that trend, it doesn't hold up there, but if it holds up for the first day, like it does, there's 2 out of the 3 days that's held up, right? And on the first day, it was 40% as compared to 57%. It was a huge difference between the morning and the afternoon wave, right? Obviously, here on Friday, it was a little bit of a difference there. The difference was 51% to 49%. So, the difference was just 2% between the morning and the afternoon wave. But, massive differences here both on Thursday and then here on Saturday. I think there might be something to be had there, right? So it's something I'm going to be playing on. In either circumstance, though, the only guys on the board are guys playing in the morning wave, so it's not like we could choose from the guys that are playing a little bit later on. But first off, Danny Lee, Martin Traynor, just the worst players on the board. I mean, Martin Traynor, when he's in contention, we're surprised. I mean, it's like, wow, who's Martin Traynor? I mean, people that don't watch golf are like, who's Martin Traynor? Even the people that watch golf are like, oh, not this again. It's like the one time every 2 years that Martin Traynor plays okay. And even when this guy makes cuts, I think people are like, oh, wow, Martin Traynor made a cut. We feel pretty good for the guy. So the fact that he has an early tee time here on Sunday, not surprising. Obviously played pretty poorly here on Saturday. He's a relatively short hitter. It's not a long par 5, but it's not one that's relatively easy to hit into. And given that it's Sunday, I don't think it's going to be a cupcake pin location. Here for Saturday, it was a cupcake pin location. There in the front right, relatively accessible, didn't have that many hazards around it. It wasn't tucked or anything like that. They tuck it, you're going to see these percentages plummet, right? From something like we saw here today where the global average was what? 48%. You could see it be closer to 40% if they actually put it in a tucked pin location. So I like the prop a whole lot, pretty much regardless of the player, but especially when it's somebody like Martin Traynor, who's like almost a meme of a golf player at this point. You have Danny Lee, who's not quite as much of a meme as Martin Traynor. He's been a lot more relevant over the last few years, but Danny Lee, well past his prime, another player who's just quite frankly not all that good at this point of his career. He's a shorter hitter. He doesn't have all that much of a skill set to rely on rather than the short game where he can get hot with the putter. And it's the first hole of a round. He's not going to come into that hole with a hot putter. They're not teeing off of both tees with threesomes or something like that. So I feel relatively comfortable getting to Danny Lee here. I'm teeing off in the group before Martin Traynor where we're taking the over. So, of course, the reason why we're taking the fades is to get us that extra value to get us to a 12.5x. And personally, I have this card in. I also have a few 4-leg powers where I take out one of Danny Lee or Martin Traynor and run the top 3 with them and vice versa. And those are the 3 cards that I'm rolling with here for Sunday's round. All right, that's all I've got for the round 4 picks. Before you hop on out of here, let me know what your favorite prop on the board is down in the comments. And as per usual, we'll have you covered for next week's slate, which is the Memorial Tournament. It's Muirfield Village, another classic design on the PGA Tour that we've seen for quite some time, which first off means it's a solid golf course. It's going to be one of the more pristine venues that we have. We're going there year in and year out. But more than that, we have a ton of data to rely on, which for all of us that are playing Prize Picks, doing the research, that is music to our ears. So looking forward to that. If you haven't already smashed the like button here, make sure you do that. And again, comment down below what your favorite prop is. Best of luck here for Sunday, guys, and let's get this cash.